Welcome to the Following Films podcast, where we dive deep into the art of storytelling and the creative minds behind it. Today, we're thrilled to have a very special guest, Dallas Jenkins, the visionary filmmaker behind The Chosen, and now his latest project, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. In this episode, we'll explore the heartwarming journey of bringing the best Christmas pageant ever to life. Dive into Dallas's bold decision to take The Chosen to theaters, and discuss the profound importance of communal experience in storytelling. Whether it's through laughter, tears, or shared moments of awe, Dallas has a unique way of connecting audiences. So sit back, relax, and join us while we talk with Dallas Jenkins about his faith, his film, and the power of community. The Best Christmas Pageant Ever is in theaters and available on VOD. Hope you enjoy the show. Thanks. Hey Dallas, how are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for doing this, man. I really enjoyed the film. It was such a wonderful, warm surprise. I was just really thrilled with it. So congratulations. You got a special one here, man.
Oh, I appreciate that. Now I'm going to ask you a question because I'm curious about this. I've heard that term a few times, surprise, where it's like, oh, it was a warm surprise. And I'm curious why you'd use that term. And it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. I'm just, what was it that you just didn't expect it to be? What? I'm just curious because I think I've heard that a few times.
So Christmas movies, I think, as a genre, are often deeply cynical in their execution, where I think they try to emulate something that's warm, something that has heart, that harkens back to our childhood, but they often miss the mark by a mile. And so it's really rare that you have something that feels like it was made with genuine heart and it was something that was a story that was worth telling. And so I think that's what's unique about this, that you somehow have made a film that feels like it. I'm 48 years old. So this feels like you found a lost film from my childhood that I just had never seen. This absolutely feels like a classic film that just somehow was just unearthed here in 2024.
Yeah, that's so well said. I'm so grateful to hear that. And I've heard that a lot of, oh, this feels like a movie I've seen before, but I haven't, and I think that's a testament to a couple of things. It's based on a classic book. The book's been around for 50 years, been a bestseller for a long time. I read it to my kids almost 20 years ago. And when I got to the last chapter, after I was reading, just very witty, the story is great. The story of these 6 herdman kids, the worst kids in the world, who everyone hates and everyone's scared of, and they're bullies and they're mean, and they hijack the Christmas pageant and take over, and everyone thinks it's going to be the worst thing ever because they've got all this tradition and sameness that they've gotten used to, and the herdmans intrude on all of that. And then, of course, everyone thinks it's going to be the worst Christmas pageant ever, and the title gives away that it's the best one. But here's my point: the beauty of the writing of the original book is I stand on those shoulders. But I think because I love the book so much, I really wanted it to feel timeless. And so I'm 49, you're 48.
Yeah.
The word that we used when we were making it for the visuals and for the style is then. You don't know what decade it is, but it feels like something, even if you're a young person, because kids have liked the movie too, it just feels like maybe last year, or if you're an adult, it feels like your childhood. It's like, I've seen that car. I remember my grandmother's TV. We had tons of props and wallpaper. And I mean, every decision was made with timelessness in mind so that it would feel not like what we see today. Right now, there are probably, I'm not exaggerating, 150 Christmas movies from 2020, like new to 2020. Yeah. And if you turn them on, they all feel, and they're comfort food. I'm not even criticizing them.
Sure.
There are people who love them, but they all look and feel very samey, and there's a shine to them that is very modern, very, it's almost as warm as it might feel. It's a little bit distancing as well.
Yeah.
And so this is a movie that I really wanted people to be drawn into and to feel like they're part of it, and it feels recognizable to them.
Well, I think the look of the film goes a great deal to that. And Kim Miles, who I've had on the show before, I had a chance to interview him a while ago.
Oh,
he's
great.
Great guy. And he's one of those people that I think he has the ability to take digital photography and make it feel like film in a way that a lot of people don't, where he really can be a chameleon and services a story in a way that very few, he has this style that is almost invisible, because he
Yes.
absolutely becomes each one of the projects he's working on. And I'm always fascinated to see what he's doing next. Because if you put this next to Marwan or even, Brother Sun that he did for Netflix or any of these other projects, you wouldn't know that it was the same guy that shot Best Christmas Pageant. It just doesn't make sense, but it is that's his style, is that it really, he
Yes.
does he just captures what the vision of the director, I think, really
Yeah,
well.
that's very well said. He's a wonderful cinematographer and he serves the project. But I think there's a delicacy and a class to his cinematography that I think
Mhm.
does go across all the projects he works on.
Yes.
He's not insisting on himself. We use that term a lot. Now, this movie was a little bit unique in that the framing was so specific. Our um, influences were. I was like, it's Wes Anderson meets Norman Rockwell, but
Yes.
it can't feel like Wes Anderson movies. I love Wes Anderson, but sometimes it's so framed, it's so perfect that it's a little bit emotionally distancing, and that's where the Norman Rockwell comes in, and that's where I think my storytelling style comes into play, which is I'm very much uh, I'm really obsessed with authenticity and heart, and so we were like, we're going to use this very the framing is going to be very centered. It's going to be very precise, very specific, but it has to feel like within that frame, it's heartfelt, like a Norman Rockwell painting. And so that was what made Kim a beautiful partner for me on this, is because we never wanted it, even though it was very precise,
Yeah.
very staged, very very framed. We said it can't feel, we can't let that distance the viewer. It has to still have heart and depth. And so the production designer, John, who's a genius, and our costumer, Maria, who's also a genius, and our hair and makeup team and all that, they all worked together with Kim and with myself to make sure that the colors and the textures didn't feel stale. They felt rich and deep.
Well, the world feels incredibly lived in. It feels
Sure.
very real. It is a highly stylized piece. It absolutely is. And I think that the similarities with you and Wes Anderson are actually, it's a good one to point out, because I think that there's some that it can have a cold feeling because his stuff, because it is so meticulous, but I never feel a sense of coldness or from him. I feel that he has genuine affection for his characters. There can be a
Yes.
distancing in that sense, but I think there's an intangible where you can tell if the people who are making the film have warmth, if have they have feeling, if they have heart for their characters. I
Yeah.
never feel the sense of judgment on his characters, and I feel that with you as well, where I never feel a sense of judgment on these characters, even people that can could seem one note to
Yes.
some degree. For lack of a better word, the villains of the piece could be played that way, but they're not here. These are people that just have a very specific perspective, and I think that this story could spin out in any number of directions and follow these people because they all feel very realized and they feel very. I feel your affection for all of these people, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. And that's absolutely true. And yeah, that's true of Wes Anderson. I think I'm a little bit more unashamedly sentimental
Yeah,
than he
so
is
am I.
in my storytelling. But yeah, when people will say, "Who's your favorite character?" or "Who's the character you most identify with?" and they ask me that about this movie or about I do a TV show called The Chosen, and
Yeah,
we're 5 seasons into it, and I still will say, "Oh, they're all my children." I can't. None of them am I favorable more towards than the others, even the villains, quote unquote, because no one wakes up in the morning thinking, how can I, be a villain today? And so we want to find the humanity in all of them. And that's what the whole story of the Christmas pageant is. The Best Christmas Pageant Ever is a story about finding the humanity in everyone, including Mary and Joseph, people
yep.
we've put on paintings and stained glass windows where you, you, you forget that they were human beings who were in over their heads and struggling to figure this out, just like the characters, the Herdmans, the worst kids in the world who hijacked the pageant. Then when they play these characters, you realize they're in over their heads too, and that's what makes the storytelling of the pageant so beautiful. And it's why the people who are used to the same old pageant, they actually get changed as well. And so everyone learns a little bit from each other, and it learns a little bit from this extraordinary story, the roots of Christmas.
Well, it's the thing that I think I was so surprised by and struck by in this particular story was the conversations that this family has are the exact conversations that I had as a kid when I was first learning these stories. The things
Mm.
that I rubbed up against were the same things that these kids are rubbing up against. It's like, this doesn't make sense to me in this way. That just doesn't feel like a reality. And so you
Yeah,
never see
when
those.
you're being told the Christmas story of Mary and
Exactly.
Joseph, it's like, yeah, the Herdman kids are asking the questions that all of us may have wanted to ask, but didn't feel like we were comfortable doing so because we didn't want to look dumb. And what you see in Judy Greer, who I'm so
Uh,
proud of in this film,
so amazing. She's
she's so
wonderful.
great, but she's being asked these questions from the Herdman kids, like, what are swaddling clothes, and what kind of baby would want frankincense,
The
oils and
oils.
perfume,
Yeah.
you know, and she's like, huh, that's actually a good question, and they start to realize they're learning about this story even though they've heard it 100 times, and the Herdman kids have never heard it before. The Herdman kids' perspective might actually be closer to the truth because of their poverty, because of their outsider status. They might actually understand Mary and Joseph better than the Christians do, the ones who've been going to church their whole lives. And that's what I think my job is as a filmmaker in many ways, whether it's through my show, The Chosen, which is about the stories of Jesus and the disciples
Yeah.
of the first century, but Best Christmas Pageant Ever, is to try to bridge that gap, is to say, we have done this. We have put these stories on stained glass windows, on paintings, and even in some cases, biblical films that still feel like stained glass windows because they're so formal.
Yeah.
And the characters in the Best Christmas Pageant Ever have so much reverence for the nativity that it's distanced them from the story. They've put it up on a wall, they've put it up in a display, and Mary is this precious with the the halo around her head, and the baby Jesus is this away in a manger, no crying he makes. It's this we've created this distance, and the Herdmans, the bad kids, the poverty kids, the kids on the wrong side of the tracks, are the ones who bridge that gap. And that's what I'm hoping to do as a filmmaker, is just say, whether you're a believer or not, these stories is part of our childhood, part of our lives every year. Let's at least get it right. Let's at least understand the truth and the humanity of it. And it might actually just change our perspective of each other.
Oh, absolutely. And I know we are at time right now, and I have like a million other questions I could ask you about
We can
this,
take a
but
few more minutes. It's fine. It's fine. Go ahead. We can take a few more minutes. I'm
well,
okay.
the one thing that there's a bunch of things here, but I'm absolutely struck by how just that element that you're talking about, that this is open to other points of view. And it's actually in the storytelling itself, it's inviting people who
Right.
maybe this isn't their story, this isn't their faith, this isn't their religion, but there's something they can get out of the story. It is a very open, I think,
Yeah.
inviting premise that you have here, where it is these kids are the outsider voice, and that could be an audience member that says, well,
Yeah.
this isn't my story, but I do see some of myself in here, and I think it's very open in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a believer.
Yeah.
I'm a Christian. I'm an evangelical, and I grew up in the church. I know this story. I believe this story was true. I believe that Mary and Joseph gave birth to
Yeah.
the Savior of the world, right? But a movie is not the place for me to try to convert you to my belief. It's A movie is just supposed to be a good piece of entertainment. And yes, everyone who makes a good movie has a perspective, a point of view, and hopefully it's impacting you in some way. But in an hour and a half, I'm hoping that you have a good time, that you feel nostalgic, and that maybe you learn something new. That's fine too. But I think that's what you're feeling in the movie, is that I'm saying in the story itself that we churchgoers don't have the monopoly on righteous behavior. And in many ways, we can sometimes miss the boat. And sometimes
Yeah.
it takes people from the outside to unlock some truths that maybe we have forgotten about, including things like, show love to the even the least of these, even those who we might think are other, or we might think should be on the outside. This story is for everyone. And Pete Holmes, who plays the dad in the movie, has said this in some of his interviews. He's like, "There's room at the inn for everyone." And
Yeah.
in the Christmas story, there's no room at the inn for Mary and Joseph. We're saying this story can be accessed. This story can be enjoyed by everyone. And I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm just trying to get things out of the way so that you can see the truth of what actually happened. And then what you do with that is not up to me. But the movie is certainly not exclusive to churchgoers on any level. The movie is actually in many ways as much for the outsiders as the insiders.
Oh, I completely agree with you. And I think the thing that you're talking about, that is when people hear about a movie that has a sense of it, faith-based, sure, but it's not something it never feels pious. It never has
Right.
that sense to it. You never feel a soapbox. in this film, which I think similar in the same way that there's Christmas films that have that thing that feels false. When a movie that's about inclusion and acceptance and love feels pious, it feels cynical to me as well.
Right, right.
And
And
you,
that
you
goes
miss the
for,
point.
yeah, and that goes for all sides of the political or spiritual
Absolutely.
or sociological spectrum. Any movie you see, even if you happen to agree with the premise of the filmmaker, whether he's liberal or conservative, or whether she's a Christian or not, whatever the filmmaker, you certainly you can smell it when it feels like it's propaganda.
Yeah.
And no one hates propaganda more than a film goer, right? I mean, and hopefully most filmmakers are going to be, I think, agreeing that in the pantheon of Christmas films, at least one of them should reflect the truth, the origins of the story, right? So we see so many Santa Christmases, we see romance Christmases, we see comedy Christmases, and I've got my list of Christmas classics that I watch every year, and none of them reflect my quote unquote faith. There's no story of in Elf or Home Alone
No.
or it's a Wonderful Life. It's got angels, but it's not like a Jesus story, and that's okay. I love those films, but it feels like, well, Christmas, the beginnings of it, we're in this stable with this Mary and Joseph, this nativity scene. There should be at least one movie that we watch each year that reflects that, whether you're a believer or not. And so that's what I'm hoping this is a contribution to, is to the pantheon of Christmas films that we watch every year that comes from that all come from different perspectives. And I think that's part of the Christmas story, is the different perspectives.
There's something incredible about Christmas. There's two holidays that we have a lot of movies around that people will revisit year after year after year. It's kind of that ramping up. For a lot of people, it can be Halloween, and okay, what are the spooky films that you need to watch every year, whatever your taste happens to be, to make you feel that thing. And it's the same thing with Christmas, where you can have all that build up to it. And what are these things that you can watch year after year after year? And I absolutely feel like you've made something here that people are going to come to for years and years to come. This is going to be something that people will be discovering for the first time this year and rediscovering for 10, 20, 30 years to come. I think you got something real special here, Dallas. So
Well,
congrats, man.
that means a lot. Thank you for sharing that. And from your lips to God's ears, I hope so. But yeah, that's what we've been hearing so far is, every year there's about 100 Christmas movies that come out at least, but they come and go. They're replaced the next year by the same version, of that story. And so when you can get one that people can see in theaters, it feels more long lasting. It's a true gift, and it's a gift to me as a filmmaker, but it's also a gift I hope I'm giving to popular culture.
And I got a last thing I got to throw out there to you.
Sure.
I love the way just from the business of theaters is something I love. I love going to see films in a movie theater. I love that there's a film like this that did really well in the theater, but I also love that you've done something that I don't know why other people aren't emulating it with The Chosen, where you're having these theatrical events with it, which I can't get my head around why, Stranger Things doesn't do a theatrical component to it. It's so obvious, it's right there, and I don't understand, but I'm really happy to see you laying that out in a way that I think people should be copying.
Yeah, it was really cool. The first time we did it was we did a Christmas special. We released that in theaters, had an event. It did about 15 million to the box office, which was a big shocker. This was coming out of COVID. People still weren't going to theaters yet. So that was exciting. So we're like, well, let's do it for, I think it was season 3 was the first season we put in theaters. And I remember seeing on X, a box office pop culture page said, The Chosen has now come out in theaters. It did this amount, and the fans are loving it. Your move, Mando. It was like, it was like some others need to be doing this too. And it was so fun to be on the front end of a trend. And we are starting to see some of these shows starting to put their premieres in theaters or do some sort of event. It's challenging because of SAG, the actors, the actors
the contracts that you have, and
there's all these different things that come into play. So we actually don't make a whole lot of money on it, even when we do in the box office, because there's a whole different pay jump and all that stuff with actors and crew and all that. So there's reasons why it's challenging, but when you can crack the code, it's worth it. And we're going to do it. Season 5 of The Chosen is coming out in theaters at the end of March. And our cast are excited about it. The audience is excited about it. It belongs on the big screen. And so some of those more cinematic shows, we film in a cinematic way. I think absolutely, it's at least the season finales should you should go and experience it with other people.
Well, there's something that we're losing. We used to have, even with television, the shows would come out week by week and we would have a
Yes.
water cooler and people would be talking about these things for months at a time. And now we have
Yeah.
something you watch 8 episodes in a weekend. By the time the following weekend comes around, you can't even remember what you watched. You don't sit with things and think about them, and having a communal experience with these things that you love is just, it's something we're just desperately missing. So I think it's a really important thing. I think that it, as silly as it might sound, going into a public space and sharing things with your community, having that fellowship is really important, I think.
Yeah, and honestly, that's what's kind of ironic about the best Christmas pageant ever is it's about that very
Yep,
thing.
exactly.
Everyone comes together to watch this pageant, and there's a transcendent experience. And that's what we were, that's one of the reasons why I think the movie did well in theaters is because it's a commercial for the beauty of a communal experience, and everyone laughs together and everyone cries together, and then everyone gets impacted together. And so that's something that's beautiful about the story that this book that this movie's based on, that comes from the book. But I think we were able to pull it off in the film, so it was a beautiful thing to see.
It was great, man. I had a great time with it, and you got me. I cried at the end. Loved it, and I
Good,
can't wait
good.
to share this one with my kids. It's not rare, or it's pretty rare that I find a movie that I'm this into that I'm just looking forward to sharing with my 9 year
Well,
old and my 14-year old. So great
well, that
work,
means a
man.
lot. Means a lot. Thank you. And now it's available on home viewing, so you can gather them on the couch and watch it together.
Done. Done. We'll
Yep.
do. And congratulations, Dallas. I really enjoyed the film. It was really great to meet you as well. This was a
Yeah.
fantastic conversation. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Me too. Thank you. Good. We'll
Thank
do it
you.
again sometime.
Merry Christmas, my friend.
Merry Christmas.
Take care.